Sainath, why did you choose to do this?
Well, firstly, I wrote the book for the people in it. Their stories need to be told. They have a right to have their stories told. And we need to know their stories in order to better script our own. You know, in 5 years, and secondly, it's written for the sea of young faces I see before me who have been and are being robbed of their history. You know, in 5 years' time, and I find this heartbreaking, not a single person who fought for India's freedom will be alive. The youngest person alive in this book is 97. The oldest is about to turn 105. Okay? In the generation I see before us, and the ones to come certainly, are never ever going to see, speak to, hear, engage with, listen to a bona fide freedom fighter who fought for this country's independence. I find that heartbreaking. When all of us grew up amidst them, you know, if we don't know where we came from, do we know where we are going? Yeah. Now, those 15 people are very representative of tens of millions of others. The point about the book was also that it wasn't a bunch of Oxbridge elites who brought you your independence. It was ordinary, everyday people. Gandhi wrote a letter from Yerawada jail in 1931, you know, cautioning a fan of his who was glowing praise on Gandhi, and he says in one sentence, "Great men seem to be the cause of revolutions in the world. In truth, the people themselves are the cause." Yeah? In the book, who are these people? They are farmers, laborers, cooks, couriers, homemakers. The oldest is a homemaker, and we will discuss her story. The other thing which outraged me into completing the book this year was what sort of a 75th year celebration are we having, and what is it that we are celebrating? You know, colonialism wasn't a bloody cricket match. Okay? What is it that made tens of millions of ordinary Indians who did not have the protection of upper caste and upper class backgrounds stand up and fight? Something happened, and it was called British colonialism. Yeah. I find it heartbreaking that the official website, the 75th year website, Azadi Ka Amrut Mahotsav, does not have a single photograph, a single story, a single video, a single quote, a single anything of a living freedom fighter. Whose photos it has, you know. Right? From websites to gas cylinders, it's... You know, and a young generation may be forgiven for thinking that he led that freedom struggle. Even if he was born after it, probably. But more importantly, there is not one paragraph on British colonialism and what it did. What did you fight? Why did you fight? Why did your I want to tell every one of you young people in this audience, some of you look so young, you still have great-grandparents. Go back, talk to your grandparents and great-grandparents. Every family has a story. Every one of you will find a story. Okay, now this British colonialism, Indu, I mean, just consider the latest scholarly work out on it shows us that in the years of British colonialism, in just few decades, India recorded 168 million excess deaths. in just the years 1881 to 1920, the calculation the researchers are making is 100 million excess deaths. Of course, this calculation can vary depending on the assumptions you use for mortality. But let me tell you this. If it was 1% of this figure in a European country, it would be called genocide. If it was 1% of this figure in a European country, it would be called genocide. And we lower our flag to mourn the death of the symbol of those 200 years of colonialism and oppression. How humiliating is that to those of your freedom fighters? How humiliating is it? You've not heard. And not only that, we lower, what kind of flag do we lower? The flag, according to a flag is not a piece of cloth with colors painted on it. It's the expression of a national aspiration and a sense, our unity, our bonds. Yeah? And it, therefore, in its historic role, the law had it that the Indian flag must only be made of khadi. They changed the flag code, and the flag is made of polyester. It bankrupts thousands of khadi weavers across the country who make money twice a year on for Republic Day and for Independence Day. How shameful is that? But that British colonialism, between 100 and 168 million excess deaths is the estimate now. 2, 24 major famines in which tens of millions of people die. Tens of millions of others die of starvation. Tens of millions die in wars, in exterminating whole tribes. Indeed, apart from exterminating whole tribes, classifying 200 tribes as criminal, genetically criminal people, 70 years, 60 years before the Nazi state did it. Yeah? Oh, these sporting, fair play Englishmen. Yeah. 60 years before Adolf Hitler came up with his genetically inferior and criminal theories, the British created the 1870, the Criminal Tribes Act. Yeah? And these criminal tribes, even after the repeal of that act in 1950, look at the suffering the Pardis, the Paharias undergo. No one will, the stigma lasts forever. Apart from that, with all these things that colonialism did to us, there is not a word in the official literature, on the official websites, and I didn't see any channels or newspapers carrying series about it. What did colonialism do to you? How it set back people? Do you know that when the British came here, life expectancy in India, according to colonial demographers W.S. Digby and Lilly, the Indian life expectancy was higher than that of Scotland and Wales and equal to that of England. By 1920, it was 21.9 years. Okay, you know, for me, and you know, we went to I went to college when they were still teaching you that stuff in textbooks about the sun never sets on the British Empire. I was born in a family of freedom fighters, one of whom had been engaged in the 1916 uprising, in the Sinn Féin uprising in Ireland, where he was studying law, and was expelled from there. Yeah. So whenever I hear this sun never sets on the British Empire, which again has started happening with Niall Ferguson and Gilly writing books saying India benefited under British colonialism, I remember the Irish version. Of the sun never sets on the British Empire, which was, the sun never sets on the British Empire Because even God can't trust those bastards in the dark.
Yeah. Sainath? Yeah. Can we talk about two stories in the book? And two stories about two kinds of people, which are very different from. Is there somebody? From the other speaker. Okay. All right. Then it's okay. So, two stories, one about a person and another about a group and a village, which at least I found fascinating. Bhavani Mahato is 95 now.
100, she's about to be 105.
105, all right. And if you read the book, you'll find her an absolutely fascinating character, full of beans, full of energy, and has done all kinds of things through the freedom struggle, which changes your idea of who a freedom fighter is. You'd like to tell us about it?
The thing is, when Indu says changes your idea, our ideas come from what the law is. There is a law under the Swatantrata Sainik Samman Yojana, 1980, which defines who is a freedom fighter in a way calculated to exclude tens of millions of human beings, especially women. By the way, through the whole law and document, when referring to survivors and compensations, it uses the word widow, not spouse. The assumption is that the freedom fighter was always a man. It only uses the word widow, not spouse. Okay? Then it says you must have had property confiscated, one of the possible criteria. How many Indians own property today? How many Indians own property then? How many landless laborers and farmers and how many people who fought and died owned property? Third, it says you must have gone to jail for 6 months, and it says that, okay, there's a concession for you girls. You can do 3 months. The three, you have to produce records of it. Okay? Even today, the hundreds of, there are over 100,000 under trials in this country. Most of them, the largest groups being Dalits and Adivasis, they cannot afford a lawyer to represent them in court. Where will they go and get records? And where in 1980 would you get your records from 1920s and 1930s? Who can ever, they never had a record. We rule them out. Then we say, and the most outrageous thing of all for me, which is what these people in the book represent, they say the law explicitly, sir, excludes those who fought underground voluntarily. Meaning your whole Subhash Bose, everybody is not covered by this law or excluded by it. And what does it say about people who fought underground who can be recognized? It says they must be listed as proclaimed offenders by the British Raj. So you're asking the colonial power to certify your freedom fighters. Yeah. Anyway, about Bhavani Mahato. She was the one who, socked it to me so hard. I was speechless for a long time. From the beginning, she insisted, and because she had accepted the stereotypes of patriarchal society, she had accepted that whatever she did was just something that had to be done, was not heroic. And she kept telling me, I was not a freedom fighter. I was not a freedom fighter. My husband, Baidyanath, was a freedom fighter. He went 13 months to jail. See that jail certification. Yeah. So, hours and hours of interviewing, and then we understand that her role was far greater than her husband's. Actually, she kept saying, what did I do? I cooked. I grew food. She's a farmer. She grew the food. She transported the food. She cooked the food and fed a family of 25. Apart from which, she kept referring to, and then I had to feed another 25 for 2 months at a time. Then suddenly they'd come back, I had to feed another 25 for 2 months at a time. And then we realized this woman at the height of the Bengal famine, was cooking and feeding 25 underground revolutionaries in the forest every day for months on end. I actually was never more, I don't believe I was ever more speechless in an interview than when I understood that. The sheer magnificence of that sacrifice. If she had been caught, she'd be dead and worse. Okay? And yet, when I asked her, she kept talking about her husband. And I said, so it must have been, I threw her a cue. I said, so it must have been very difficult for you uh, when, when your husband went to jail for 13 months. She said, no, it was much worse when he came back bringing more people with him.
Yeah.
So I think that sheer, I'm very pleased to tell you that she read the first story, first cut, and she is rethinking her achievement. And the village.
The second one. The second one, we have just 5 minutes more, by the way, Sainath. The second one is a story of a village which has an original name, but is called Badmash Gaon. And there are these 7 people there, at least the 7 that I thought were fascinating. It's like, 7 samurai types. And fascinating people. He will tell you the story.
It's in Bargat district of Odisha. And that village in 1942 was straight out of an Asterix comic. A huge bunch of people, or mind you, a Gandhian village, entirely people who had never seen Gandhi but were swayed by that magic. And who, by the way, one of the things they did, they marched into Sambalpur court in August 42 and took over the court and declared themselves to be judge, peshkar, and so then the police came to arrest them and didn't know what to do. These guys said, we are the court. You report to us, they told the police. So the police went from magistrate to magistrate for a warrant to arrest them. So the magistrate would not give a note. He would not give the warrant because he didn't have names. And these guys refused to give their names. Finally, a magistrate was found who said, just fill in the name, just put A, B, C. So they put A, B, C and they were arrested as A, B and C. And when they were produced before court, imagine the peshkar had to shout, A, Hazir ho, B, Hazir ho, C, step forward. Then the prison governor refused to accept them. He told the police, are you nuts? If these guys escape tomorrow, I'm going to tell the press that A, B, and C have escaped. I mean, they are mischievous into their 90s. When I went to see them the second time, the 7 survivors, 2 of them in their 90s were sitting on a dharna outside the BDO demanding a telephone for the village. Okay, so I mean, it's phenomenal. That village has such energy, but they're all gone now. However, 8 people in the book are alive, including Babani.
And something fascinating is that every Friday at 11:15, the 7 of them gather, and whoever else.
The whole village gathers.
And the whole village gathers, led by the 7 of them. And they actually sing Gandhiji's favorite bhajans because that is the time that he was assassinated, on a Friday.
5:38 p.m.
Every day, every Friday.
Every Friday.
And of course, the sad thing, there are no more. So Sainath believes perhaps that practice will stop now.
I want to say a couple of things more in the minutes we've got, though we lost 7 minutes when coming here. But one is that also so much of the freedom struggle is written as if it all happened up north. You know, the role of the South, the Southern revolutionaries. I mean, Veera Pandya Kattabomman was fighting in the 1790s. The Adivasis of the East were fighting within 3 years of Battle of Plassey. Jungle Mahal's Kurmis, the ancestors of Babani, for which the Kurmis paid the price. They were dropped from the scheduled tribes list and made OBCs. They were kicked upstairs, so to speak. Okay? The thing is, in this book, it shows you that it wasn't a bunch of elites. What I've tried doing is to be representative. There are people from north, south, there are people from, more people from east, south, west, northwest, and one from north. And I want to tell you that there was one from Bangalore who died just this April, H.S. Doreswamy. And I want you to know and compare your media to what H.S. Doreswamy was. This man, in the Mysore Chalo movement against the Maharaja, was externed, and he knew he would be kicked out, so he crossed the border into Anantapur. The brilliant thing he did, because he knew his newspaper would be closed down, he had such a sense of humor, he registered one newspaper under 5 titles. When they shut one down, the next day the same newspaper would appear under another title. I mean, this is the sort of people. And there are Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, Adivasis, Dalits. The idea is to show you that our freedom struggle was a pan-Indian struggle, spanned the entire social spectrum, and was not the monopoly of a handful of heroes. Yeah.
Thank you, Sainath.
Can I take one moment from you? By the way, at the end of each story in the book, there is a QR code. This is an absolutely new thing we're doing. There is a QR code. If you scan, suppose you go to Babani Mahato and scan the QR code, you go to the website, People's Archive of Rural India, where we have set up a subdomain, a Freedom Fighters Gallery. In a book, you can only have 2 photos of Babani, okay? I mean, in a chapter. There you can see her family, her descendants, videos of Babani, and that for every story. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope you all will read the book, and we are waiting for the next edition in which he will add more people, and the Northeast was missed out, so hopefully more people from the Northeast will get added. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.